we're going to lump these three concepts together. They're all in the same lesson in your textbook, Lesson 7-1. Standard 51 is product of powers, then power of a power, and power of a product. We're going to discuss all of those today. All of the exponent rules in this unit are talking about rules for monomials. When you have something that looks like this, 2x to the third, anytime we refer to a base, that's like this x. And then when we talk about powers, that's the same as exponent. So this exponent is 3. And any numbers out in front, that's the coefficient. So that number 2 is a coefficient. Those are kind of the parts of the exponents that we want to talk about. Wanted to make sure you're familiar with the terms. Standard 51 is product of powers. To multiply two powers that have the same base, add their exponents. So for example, here, both of these x's are the same. So if you have the same base, you could add your exponents, because what this means, this is x times x times x, and this is times x times x, 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 x. Altogether, you have x to the 8th power. You did not have to write all of that out because you just would add the exponents when you have the same base. That's what that rule says. Here's an example. 6n to the 3rd times 2n to the 7th. If you think about what this means, it's 6 times n times n times n times 2 times n. Okay, you don't want to have to write all that out, so we're going to refer to the rule. The rule says that you multiply the coefficients, so 6 times 2 is 12. Keep the same base and add the exponents. So our answer here is 12 n to the 10th power. You do not have to write out all of this. But if you get confused and you can't remember the rule, you can always revert back to writing it out. Let's try another example. 3p t to the 3rd power times p to the 3rd power t to the 4th power. Again, you could choose to write it all out. If you can't remember. There's only one coefficient, so it starts with a 3. Now here's the part where some people get confused. P times p times p times p is p to the 4th power. So if you're adding exponents, you had this 3 here, you might also want to remember to write in the 1 because there is one p there. So 1 plus 3 is 4. And then for the t's, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, t to the 7th power. And again, you could add the exponents, 3 plus 4. The next standard is talking about power of a power that already exists. So if you want to find the power of a power, you just multiply the exponents. So like if you had x to the 3rd, all of that to the 5th power, what that's really saying is you have 5 of everything going on in here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a lot. But what you really just should do is just multiply the exponents together. So you're going to get x to the 15th power. You do not have to write out all of that. Only write that out if you're having trouble conceptualizing what you're talking about. All right, and the last concept. Oh, let's do one more of these examples. So if we're going to use the rule, the exponents get multiplied together. So 2 times 3 is 6, times 4 is 24. So we'll keep the base, which is 2, multiply the exponents, which is 24. All right. The last concept is power of a product. So you have lots going on in a parenthesis, all of that to a power. To find the power of a product, find the power of each factor, and then multiply. So, for example, I'm going to take this 5 and apply it to every factor inside. Each base gets that exponent. So we'll have negative 2 to the 5th power, x to the 5th power, and y to the 3rd to the 5th power. So when we simplify that, negative 2 to the 5th power, negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 is negative 32. You can also use your scientific calculator to help you figure that out. X to the 5th power, and then y to the 3 times 5 is y to the 15th power. So the power is applied to each factor inside. Let's try an example. 3xy squared, all to the 3rd power. Each factor inside, including the coefficients and any x or any variable base, they all get this 3. And if you needed to write it out because you can't remember or you can't understand what that means, think about it. All of this is 3 times. So 3xy squared times 3xy squared times 3xy squared. That's what that means, but you don't need to write all that out when you just can remember to apply that 3 to each of them. So 3 to the 3rd power, x to the 3rd power, and y squared to the 3rd power. 3 times 3 is 9 times 3 is 27. X to the 3rd, y to the 2 times 3 is 6. So that's our answer. Now I'm going to give you 3 problems. I want you to give it your best try to do these 3 problems for the homework credit. Write down any of your questions that you have in your notes, and we'll try to answer those tomorrow when you come to class.